What's your earliest memory of a character that you felt looked like you?
Let's untangle that. Welcome to Tangled Fandom, the podcast where we weave together the magic of Disney with all of your favorite fandoms beyond the Disney bubble. I'm Erica, your resident Disney lover.
And I'm Reggie, your guide to the multiverse of pop culture. Today, we're diving into the first part of a two-part conversation on the real-life Black icons who have shaped everything from Disney classic to comic book legends. Now, these figures didn't just break barriers. They changed the game and made sure that little boys like me could see themselves in the media.
Yes, they made history and made fandoms more inclusive, but their stories often go untold, or some people seem to have forgotten how important they are.
Agreed.
And we can't have that. We got to put some respect on these people's names, right?
Agreed. So, in part one of this series, we are going to give flowers to some of those Disney icons. But before we get to that, I have a question for you and the audience. What is your earliest memory of characters that you felt represented you, Disney or not? You know, where you looked at the character and said, that could be me. We want to know. So just let us know in the comments. But Erica, how would you respond to that question?
Well, I think my earliest memory is actually non-Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Gullah Gullah Island.
Yes, Gullah Gullah Island.
Binya, Binya.
Binya, Binya.
Yeah, what about you?
First off, I didn't know what a pollywog was at the time, but it was a really, really big pollywog.
Yeah.
My earliest memory would be like preschool, like Sesame Street and Barney. And then like I think of Walter Jones on the Power Rangers. Playing Zach and being able to see someone that looked like me and being like, yeah, I could be a Power Ranger. Like I could be a Power Ranger. So, it blew my mind when I actually finally got to meet him in person.
Yeah.
And I'll tell that story at another episode for sure. But like, representation mattered. So Vince from Recess, Fillmore, Taj Mahal on Smart Guy, the famous Jet Jackson, Static. I feel like we were a part of a generation that was just blessed that we had some people in those rooms that were, where it happened, making sure that we had people that looked like everybody on the screen.
Yeah. Disney may create magic, but some of that magic is actually rooted in real life people, real life stories. And a lot of them happen to be Black, Black icons, African American icons. So I'm excited to explore some of those real life heroes today.
Yeah, because these stories deserve to be told. So today we're going to talk about the legendary chef and civil rights icon from New Orleans, Leah Chase, whose story actually inspired your favorite Disney princess, Tiana from The Princess and the Frog.
I love Tiana. You know that.
I do.
Yes. So Leah Chase is iconic for so many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But she's really known for her culinary genius, which is why Tiana is based on that. But not only is she a culinary genius, she also was a huge player in the civil rights movement, with activism and all of that. So Dookie Chase, her restaurant, was actually a hub for all of that in Louisiana during that time. So activists, leaders, community leaders, all of that, they would come together at Dookie Chase to like plan and figure out how they could make an impact on their community.
Yeah, it was their third place.
Yeah.
And Tiana's characterization was like deeply influenced by a desire to create that type of place for her community, right?
Yeah.
She definitely inherited Leah's hardworking spirit and also her resilience, because remember, Tiana didn't get a yes immediately. Tiana had to work hard and save up and scrape. And even when she had it, she was still getting no's. So she had to show tremendous resilience to be able to achieve her dream. And I think that is a direct reflection of Leah's own legacy.
Yeah. One of the things that I have loved about learning about Leah Chase, I actually learned most about her when they were doing the reboot for Tiana's Bayou Adventure.
Yeah.
So when they were, retooling Splash Mountain to become Tiana's Bayou Adventure, they had like a group of Imagineers who did like an extensive amount of like research and, taking that pilgrimage back to Louisiana to all of her places to kind of really get true inspiration so that they can do Tiana justice, but also Leah justice and, her legacy justice. And I really respect that and enjoyed that and really learned a lot from following that process. So I really want to shout out Sharita Carter, one of the lead Imagineers on that particular project, because she paid attention to the details. She did not skimp out, and she was able to tell a story along the way so that people knew not only about Tiana and the project, but about what the project was based on. And I think that level of care is really respectable, and I can really appreciate that. So shout out to her and her team for doing that.
You know what? I like that point. Like, just taking the care to make sure that you are accurately telling the story of others, and I think that's especially important for the next person we're about to talk about, Floyd Norman, and the directors who directed the documentary based off his life called Floyd Norman: An Animated Life definitely took the care to really talk about the nuances of who he was as a person. Now, Floyd Norman was the first black animator at Disney. Okay, he worked on classics like Sleeping Beauty, The Jungle Book, 101 Dalmatians, but also Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins, y'all, and he was an individual whose influence on Disney animation is undeniable. Right?
Yeah. But he didn't just draw characters. He also broke barriers in so many ways. His career paved the way for more inclusivity in animation, which was unheard of at the time. When he was back at Disney in the animators room, he was the only one.
He was the only
one. So to be in that space, to occupy that space, he was just like, listen, I just want to be here because I love my art. I love my craft.
Yeah.
And I want to draw, and that passion shined through, regardless of him being the first black animator there. But along the way, over his career, he mentored so many other young animators, and his legacy is strong, and it lives today. Like, you talked about some of those classics that he was on, but he was even on like modern day films like Toy Story 2 and Monsters Inc. He worked on those too. So he has a long history at Disney and other places too.
For sure. Because he worked at Hanna-Barbera. He worked at, obviously he worked for Pixar, but he also worked on Sesame Street and Fat Albert. Like, he is, and if people aren't talking about him, he's a part of the broader cultural conversation around representation in animation, right? So it got to the point where even Disney had to recognize him.
Yeah.
Right? Because he ended up getting saluted as a Disney, selected as a Disney legend. And when we watched the documentary, that scene was funny to me, because it was just like, all right, so who are we going to nominate for the next Disney legend? Someone's like, Floyd Norman. He's like, done.
Unanimous.
Yeah,
it's done.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Because it was that easy.
Exactly. And his art and his passion, made room for him.
Yeah.
One of the things they talked about in the documentary is that, he really worked hard, and he was relentless with his art. And I think that, going back to what we were talking about with Leah Chase, that resilience is so key to leave a lasting impact.
Yeah. He not only he was recognized as a legend, but the road was not easy.
Exactly.
He was invited to leave from Disney a couple of times throughout his career. He was invited to leave a couple of times, and that's when he went and worked on, other projects. And some of those other projects weren't even traditional animation. Disney animation, exactly. He and a couple of his friends started another label.
Yeah.
And, they were doing artwork and capturing footage and, stretching their artistic skills with capturing footage from riots, in LA.
They were just telling stories.
Yeah. And being stretching their legs as storytellers in different ways. And I can really appreciate that, because being able to not be just one thing is really cool.
Agreed.
And another thing that I really appreciated about his storytelling, or just learning more about him through that documentary, was to learn that part of the time when he was away from Disney was not because he was invited to leave, but because he was actually drafted.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a very interesting scene, and the fact that he was using his art to cope with the war and what life was throwing at him. And again, I think that's just speaks to art being therapy
Yeah.
as well. And, when we see ourselves in these characters, it's like, in some ways, like when we see them get through things, we can see ourselves get through things.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really cool, like, an important part of his story that needed to be told.
Yeah. I think using the things that you're passionate about to help you, like, cope and
Yeah,
deal and
using it as an outlet.
process as
Yeah,
your outlet so that you can deal with your emotions in a healthy and constructive way, is important. So, yeah.
agreed. And again, going back to resilience, I think that resilience is key. And I think another influential, iconic person who has shown some significant resilience, but also just come out with dope stuff. Ruth Carter. Ruth
Yes.
Carter, the dynamic costume designer. She's a fashion icon, y'all. Okay, icon. So, can you just tell us a little bit about Ruth Carter?
Yes, so I love Ruth Carter, and you all know Ruth Carter more than likely because her costumes brought Wakanda to life in Black Panther. Okay,
Yes. Yep.
and she was actually the first Black woman to win an Oscar for her costume design. So, and she got that from working on Black Panther, but that's not the only, you know, part of her work. Her catalog is deep. She's worked on a lot of things.
Deep, long. Listen, let's just take a second to talk about Black Panther and the costumes. Like
Yeah,
the film itself was just an entire just cultural moment, but like
for sure.
for the culture itself, like it was like everybody was trying to get right. Right.
Yes. For to go sit in the movie theater, everybody was dressed to the nines, honey. Like
Yes.
ready because I mean, you saw those trailers, the buzz, like it captivated everyone's like curiosity, like their attention. They were like, "Oh man, this is a moment.
Yeah.
This is a moment for us and we need to be ready for it and dressed for it." So, taking inspiration from Ruth Carter's designs, people were trying to base their outfits based on her outfit. So think that just shows the influence that her work has because it was so visually stunning that you know it just educated us as viewers
Mm-hmm.
on African garb and just Black excellence and all that sort of stuff, but also just on having pride and how you put yourself together and step out into this world. And I don't know, what do you think?
So I agree with that. I think what it did, especially like I remember seeing the first trailer. I think I learned a little while ago, and this is related, I promise. Back in Africa, like the continent of Africa, like the individuals who were taking in the transatlantic slave trade are known as like the lost generation,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like something about seeing her designs like made something come up in a lot of people that said, I want to be connected to something. I want to be connected to this thing that's deeper to me, through to my African roots. And we all wanted to be from Wakanda. So we wanted to dress like we were from Wakanda and walk in regalness. And I think some of my favorite things from the time period was like seeing people post their premiere outfits.
Yeah.
And you had some people taking inspiration from Coming to America and walking around with these fake furs. And it was such a fun time, but I feel like it was so like impactful just in people having that sense of connectedness and having that sense of culture and having like a common place that says, yes, we are all from Wakanda. And we can thank Ruth for that because she created a template for how these characters would look and feel and act in the real world that we were able to visualize and see ourselves in their world as well.
Yeah, her costumes are definitely an extension of the storytelling.
For
It
sure.
added to the amazingness that Black Panther was. But like I said, that wasn't just that wasn't her only hit. Like she's been doing this for a long time. So some of her other works include, like she worked on Amistad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she worked on Malcolm X.
Yes. Shout
Tell me
out to
some more.
Spike Lee. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
she worked on Do the Right Thing, and if you go back and there is a documentary series called Abstract on Netflix,
Hmm.
and they do a deep dive into her creative process, and you'll see like people were seeking her out. They were
Yeah.
seeking her out because she just found a way to weave a story into every character's, costume. The she wanted everyone that she is dressed to feel like that is them, not just that they were wearing a costume. Like, no, this is their actual wardrobe. And you listen to like Samuel L. Jackson talking about that, and like saying that like Ruth's costumes made him feel like he was complete.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely the finishing touch
For
on all of the characters, and I think that's because she's a student.
Yeah,
Like that curiosity that she had, like she stays in the libraries, like she researches, like all of that, so that she can have that high level of attention to detail and that care. Again, when you think about people who are excellent, it's because they do sweat the details. They sweat the small
they do
things.
sweat the small
And they
things.
take care and respect, and there's reverence there for the work that they're doing and the inspirations that they're drawing from. So I think that is a true marker of like excellence and someone who is set apart from others.
Agreed. Agreed.
And
Yeah.
and just for that, like another thing that I want to mention about Ruth that's really cool is that she kind of fell in to
Yeah,
her line of
that's
work.
true. That's true.
Like she did not grow up wanting to be a costume designer.
Mhm.
She didn't. That wasn't what she was trying to do. She actually studied theater in college,
Yeah.
but then didn't make it. Like she didn't get the lead that she wanted, and then the director ended up being like, "Well, I know you didn't get this role, but would you want to try costuming instead?" And she was just like, "Sure, why not?" And then look at the path that it led her on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
her art again made a way for her.
Yeah, like I think that that's just amazing, and I think that should be. It was encouraging for me, to listen to be like, life is not always going to be linear or like go exactly the way that you want it to, but you have to be open to the universe because God might have something for you that you couldn't have even imagined for yourself. So
Yeah.
be encouraged for folks out there who are listening. Be encouraged. You never know how the universe or things are going to unfold for you, but just trust that next best step in your life because you never know how it's going to pan out.
You know what? I agree, and I think that this next person that we are going to talk about would definitely agree with that statement as well. We're going to talk about the creator of the Proud Family.
The Proud Family. What?
We didn't rehearse that. Bruce W. Smith. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Bruce, yeah, Bruce. So I love talking about Bruce because if you want to think about, you asked the question about our earliest memories of representation. Proud Family was my earliest Disney, like,
right. You just said that.
representation that I can remember because I loved Penny Proud. I love the Proud Family because it was an animated series based on a Black family, but they were so relatable and entertaining. Like it was so funny. So I appreciate Bruce for bringing that to life.
I agree. I feel like the Proud Family like showed Black culture, but also like that intergenerational connection. Because everybody had a sugar mama or some version of a sugar mama, or had that like awkward uncle, like Bobby, or just had parents that were just trying to navigate like being present and attentive to their kids.
Yeah.
And it was a cultural phenomenon. Like we've talked about before, because when we were prepping for the show, we talked about the fact that Beyonce and Destiny's Child were singing backup on the theme song to Solange.
Yeah. It had to be big. You got Beyonce and Destiny's Child on there, like it was a thing. And Kyla Pratt voicing Penny Proud.
Shout out to Kyla Pratt.
Yeah.
She deserves her flowers too, because she was definitely, you're talking about faces on television. You saw her from the point that she was, from her being a kid taking bit parts to seeing her on, one-on-one.
Yeah.
And then for her to be the voice of Penny Proud for not just this series, but also for the sequel series that came out on Disney Plus later.
Louder and Prouder.
Yeah, she's an icon as well. So shout out to Kyla Pratt as well.
Yeah, but I mean, just to think about all the actors and voice actors that came through that show, because it was such a good show. Like
Agreed.
you had, of course, like people of the moment, like Omarion on there that came in, and but you got people like Beyonce that are singing on it. So I don't know. It was just a great show. And our kids enjoy it today, like it still has staying power, like decades later. Like our kids love that show even now.
Agreed,
Yeah.
and you can tell by how much we're talking about the Proud Family, like that's how impactful it was. But Bruce didn't just work on the Proud Family; he also worked on Tarzan and Bebe's Kids.
Hmm.
Another like movie that was like representation. Now, was Bebe's Kids my favorite type of movie? No, no, it wasn't. But it definitely was a part of the moment. But he also worked on a movie that went platinum in my house and other people's houses and doctor's office. Probably will get a re-release. One of the GOAT animation movies of all time, Space Jam.
Space Jam.
Right.
That's
So
a great one.
you know
Monstars.
but
We're the
also
monsters.
because I think I can't get enough. Talking about some of your favorite things. He worked on your favorite Disney princesses movie.
He did. That's right. He did. So he actually animated Dr. Facilier in Princess
Yes.
and the Frog.
Again, shout out to Keith David,
Yes.
another icon. Listen, he got friends on other sides. He's also been, the pastor of the churches. He's also been, tech whizzes on Community. Shout out to Donald Glover. Again, I'm gonna get one in every episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's awesome that we have like these we're talking about these individuals that are just really allowing us to think about that the greater importance of the representation, but also like getting to appreciate how fortunate we have been to have like these different faces in these different spaces.
Yeah. And another person that I really appreciated who might be, might be like, really?
Hmm.
But she is when you think about it. It's Raven Simone.
Yeah. Oh, listen.
Yeah.
Again, flowers,
Yes.
roses. Insert rose emoji. Emoji.
Yeah. So Raven Simone, she is really famous for her work on That's So Raven,
Right.
the Cheetah Girls, Raven's Home, the reboot of That's So Raven. But she got her start before that too.
Yeah, on the Cosby Show, and
Yeah.
she was also, modeling, and she was a rapper too.
Yeah.
Raven has just been an entertainer that has been with us for pretty much our whole lives. I mean, even seeing her like on The View, and doing things like as an adult, like, it's interesting when you get to see these kid stars like turn into these icons because, who would have guessed that she would have gone from the Cosby Show to That's So Raven,
Yeah.
and you're talking about becoming like a role model for millions of young girls and viewers. Like, she showed so many things. Like, black girls could be funny, they could be smart, they could be dramatic, they could be dynamic, and she was breaking stereotypes and open doors for other black stars. Like, you're thinking about like Zendaya on the Disney Channel,
Yeah.
with Casey Undercover. Like, I don't know that show happens if That's a Raven doesn't happen.
True. True. And, we're talking about representation and the importance of it. And I want to just bring up one other point. And it's about Raven Simone just being just a beautiful young woman. And at that time, her body type was very different from other young women that were on shows,
Yeah.
And for me, being a black girl, a black young woman at that time, being able to see that was really impactful for me. Like, you can,
I didn't even think about it.
yeah, you can think about representation in a lot of different ways, but it goes beyond just ethnicity and race. Like, it can be body type, it can be ability, it can be all types of things. And for me, being able to see her looking different but looking beautiful and fierce and being put together and being, like you said, funny and smart and gifted in so many ways, being set apart from others, like, it meant a lot to me.
It was literally black girl magic. And, shout out to the people behind the scenes like that gave all of these different people that we've talked about in today's episode a shot, because if they did not, we would not be here talking about them. And we are lucky that there is such a, deep catalog across the multiverse of pop culture to celebrate during this Black History, which we should be celebrating all the time, right? But there are more that we haven't mentioned. So stay tuned for part 2 so that we can, talk about that. But let us know in the comments, like, what are your favorites, right? Let us know. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
So until next time,
Keep embracing the fandoms you love.
see you real soon.
Soon.